UFC 312, the middleweight title rematch is going down in Sydney. This is the Funk and Flex MMA betting breakdown show. Whether you're tuning in with me live here Friday night or you're watching the replay on Saturday, I appreciate y'all for being here. Drop a like on the thumbs up button down below. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the weekly content that I have coming out. Wednesdays preview and prediction shows and Fridays betting breakdown, both at 8:30 Eastern. Follow me at Funk and Flex MMA on Instagram to get any channel updates, as well as the full plays posted there every Saturday. Before we go ahead and jump into this week's betting breakdown, we do have to go through a recap, and unfortunately, this one's going to be a painful one for me, guys. As we started out the year, rough is an understatement. This last week's card in Saudi Arabia happened to be my worst card of the year so far. Unfortunately, I did have three switches from the preview and prediction show to the betting breakdown, and all three of those switches were losses, including one of the dogs of the week last week. Unfortunately, Myra Buena Silva was not the play. I was on Jazz Davicius early on in the week, and as soon as I heard the matchup, the thing that made me switch, surprisingly, even after seeing Myra Buena Silva struggle on the scales, she did seem to recover nicely, and I was worried that the size advantage on Friday night was going to be too much for Jazz Davicius to overcome, and I do regretfully admit to doubting her, as Jazz Davicius was just dominant in that whole fight. I did have a sprinkle on Myra Buena Silva sub, so in that first round guillotine attempt, I was holding my breath a little bit, but then the rest of the fight, Jazz Davicius just dominated, and really that guillotine attempt was nothing too serious, as Jazz Davicius just really knows what she's doing when it gets to these ground exchanges. We were also wrong on the Lucas Alexander dog call. Both of those losses are bringing us to 0-4 on the dog of the week. He was technically the first one, bringing us down to 0-3, and then Buena Silva losing immediately after, bringing us to 0-4. So, very weak start of the year on my favorite category, honestly, of all the plays that I give out. So I'm really gonna lock in, and I've locked in already. I'm excited for the dogs that I got to present to you guys this week. But unfortunately, Lucas Alexander, he did look great throughout the first two rounds of the fight until it ended. Honestly, he really did look good with a round and a half until Bogdan Grad just clipped him one time. Lucas Alexander kind of reaching on a strike, and Grad just showing the grappling. I did have a play on the degenerate side with Grad by sub as kind of a hedge to the bet, and he almost had it locked in a couple of times too. Nice submission attempts from Grad, and really showed his ground game was superior to Alexander's, to where eventually he did find the elbows and fists and hammer fists to get the finish for nice TKO in round two, and unfortunately bringing me down another loss. So kind of killing the momentum here. Not that there was much to begin with through the first 2 weeks, but this is the first negative card that I have on the year, going 5-6 on the picks, which is even more frustrating considering the fact that those three switches would have had me at an 8-3 record. And if you did follow the preview and prediction show, that's what we went last week. But that's neither here nor there. Uh, Moving along to the confident picks section, Pavlovich, I knew was a lock, but to be honest, it didn't quite go the way that I wanted. Um, I did think he was going to get the KO early in the fight, but he ended up using his wrestling, and it ended up being one of the most boring fights, what appeared to be one of the most explosive fights before the card. A little bit of a disappointment. And Naimov also coming through with the dominant performance. His skill set really isn't the power, so I'm not crazy surprised that he didn't get a finish. However, Nurmagomedov and Adesanya did let us down, going another 2-2 record, bringing us to 6-4 on the year. Disappointing segment here for confident picks. Just all around, kind of down start to the year. But like they say, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I am really excited about the picks I have for you guys this week. So we'll just keep moving along. Um, I'll talk quickly about the Adesanya fight, as I did think, just like Alexander, even more so in this one, he looked really good early in the fight, first and second round, and then just switched stances at the wrong time and caught an overhand that just dropped him. really more not even an overhand, just kind of a high straight that he threw at an angle. And Imavov just dropped Adesanya against the cage, where he then ate one of the nastiest uppercuts that you could eat. Just dropped him with his arms kind of pinned underneath him, his body weight, and Imavov was able to get the ground and pound finish, which is unfortunate because I do think Adesanya looked pretty sharp throughout that fight. But that being said, we'll have to see what kind of matchup he gets next. He's definitely a few fights away from the championship, so he may even look into retiring here, which would be a bummer because I do think that he has looked crisp in his last couple of fights, and he's still capable of putting on these performances. Just kind of having, I mean, those days, people get hit, people get caught, and unfortunately, it was Adesanya's week last week to get caught, and Imavov, not taking anything away from him, he pulled that out of the fire. Because I definitely thought that that fight was looking to a 4 or 5 round finish for Izzy. Maybe even a hard fought decision if he just continued to piece him up like he was early on. Saeed Nurmagomedov, who only can dominate competition that's in the high teens to low 20s level of rankings, maybe even, we'll go 20s to 30s, but dominate below than that. Finally met another rank 15 or higher, who Vinicius Oliveira continues to prove to be, and make me eat my confident pick on Nurmagomedov, as I didn't think it was more of a fade on Oliveira, and I continue to be wrong on that, as I've done that twice now in a row. I did have him beating Sopaj, so we'll take it for what it's worth, but credit to Vinicius Oliveira for continuing to just grow in between each fight, even at his experience level. He's continuing to make changes. A lot of guys, when they get 15, 20 fights in, continue to stick to their same skill set and don't really grow or evolve, or, at least the bad ones don't. But he's proven to be a good one, and I can't continue to fade him anymore. So, props to Vinicius Oliveira. Saeed, you'll have to go back to fighting someone that's ranked in the 20s. On to the only section where we have a little bit of momentum coming in here. Terrence T Rex McKinney, the lock of the week, coming in, bringing us to a 2-2 record, and he just dominated exactly how I expected. Kind of what I was expecting Pavlovich to do, but almost even in a more technical way, where Hadzovic just had no answers for Terrence McKinney's pressure. And I like to see that from Terrence McKinney. He did mix in some grappling there. Looked like he was going to get the sub, but I did cash the round 1 KO ticket on this, which did kind of save my night. In total, we did end up going down 1.4 units profit, which isn't ideal, obviously, guys. I am just taking this on the chin, ripping it off with like a band-aid real quick. It brings us to down point four, down negative 4.4 units on the year. One of the worst starts I've ever had to a year in gambling, but like I said, and I continue to say, I'm excited because I truly believe that that means I'm going to finish with one of the strongest years, with one of the weakest starts. I believe it's going to be just a balance of extremes. So, that being said, the confident pit section is next. I got Kong Wang coming to you as a confident pick here. I think that she's going to have answers for Bruna Brazil, who a lot of people think is going to fraud check again Wang, who got fraud checked in her first fight. This one's going to go different. I like Kong Wang here. I think she's the more technical striker, and I don't think that Bruna Brazil is going to be able to even implement any of her grappling. If she is, I think Wang can hold her own in that category too and return to her feet and continue to either piece her up to what's going to be a high point decision or get a knockout sometime in the second or third round, which I think is very likely. Um, Maybe even first, I wouldn't be surprised. But give me Kong Wang with a dominant win in this fight. I also like Cody Steele in this matchup against Rong Zhu. Moneyline 280. I think he might get it done inside the distance, even with the sub, which we'll get to a little bit later in this video. But Cody Steele, definitely a confident pick. Rong Zhu has over 30 pro fights, and he's only 27, 28 years old, I think. Young, maybe even younger than that. Cody Steele, 29, in his athletic prime. Very big name in the jiu-jitsu community, great wrestling. We haven't seen it implemented too much, but on paper he's supposed to have great wrestling. Definitely on the ground, he's going to have an advantage. and I think that he's going to have the power advantage here too. Although Rangju may have the more technical striking and maybe even the more fight IQ as it goes later into fights, we haven't really seen him implement that either. I think Cody steals the side here, and I think that the UFC is giving him a matchup he can win to go 8-0. Moving on to the strawweight goat, Wei Lee, getting majorly overlooked in this position. I get that Tatiana Suarez is one of the best female wrestlers ever, but I just don't think that she's going to be able to keep up with Wei Lee. I think Wei Lee's up there enough to stuff some of the takedowns. She's very strong. If you haven't seen some of the videos of her online throwing around Francis Ngannou and some other, bigger heavyweight guys, I'm pretty sure Alex Pereira she took down too and was doing, wrestling with. She's just a very strong female as well. I think a lot of people think Tatiana Suarez is going to be able to just take this fight to the ground whenever she wants. And while she may do that, I'm going to go ahead and have faith in the underdog, who just happens to be one of the most dominant strawweight champions that's ever existed. Give me Wei Lee. I did get her at plus 120. I'm going to go ahead and bet her again here as I make this video when I'm done uploading this. I do have her right now as a minus 105, so I'll sprinkle a little bit more on that. Not to bet in the wrong way with the line moving, but I do just regret not placing a larger bet at plus 120, and I want to have some more action in on this, as I do really like this pick in the confident pick section, which will wrap up here with Salakilled as the final confident pick. I like him inside the distance too as a confident pick you can throw on. His money line's all the way up to minus 160. And even though he doesn't really have enough UFC experience or MMA experience in general to be justified at that expensive of a price tag, he is fighting the India Road to UFC champion, who just has not looked impressive, to say the least. And I think Salakil will be able to find a submission here if he does implement the grappling. I'll be very surprised if Jubilee is able to win this fight as the underdog. Go ahead and get me Salakil as a confident pick. Which brings us to our dog of the week section here. We need a little love on this section. So I did include two picks again this week. This first one, a little bit of line movement. He's pretty much even money now over Slavikaz. I like Tom Nolan. I think they'll be able to hold his own in the kickboxing department, even though I think Slavikaz may be the slightly better striker. He has looked absolutely atrocious on the ground. Tom Nolan, the younger fighter who's going to be able to, grow a little bit more from his last experience where he's lost some tough decisions. But nonetheless, I think that he's able to go ahead and get a ground finish here. And sorry, not losing tough decisions. I'm saying lost in a tough situation is what I meant to say against the knockout against Nicholas Mota. Just a tough position that he suffered here in the UFC. Other than that, has looked very good, and I think will look good against Slavikaz if he's able to get his grappling involved. The next dog here, we're going to go my dog, Justin Tafa, who needs a big win in this spot. And I believe in him here. Taliesin Teixeira did not impress me in his Dana White Contender Series premiere, where he was a minus 1,600 favorite to start that fight. And he got clipped early on by a guy that was just throwing haymakers. And Teixeira was willing to just bite down on the mouthpiece and trade the blows. And he was the last one standing. But I don't think Justin Tafa is going to engage in that kind of warfare here with him. Needing a win off of a few losses in a row here. Tafa is a counter striker who is going to wait for this big Goliath to overshoot and be the David underdog at home. Crowd goes crazy after what I believe some of the Australian fighters having a tough time early in the fight. Give me Justin Tafa to win the featured fight of the main card with a big knockout, either in round one or two, uh, as the dog of the week. Bringing us to our momentum, Dricus du Plessis, the lock of the week this week. I hate betting against the American champion, and I do think Strickland has the potential to win this fight, but I just think it's very unlikely. I think Dricus is the all around better MMA guy, and while Sean Strickland kind of shows up and you know what he's going to do every time, he kind of does the same thing, stuff the takedowns, throw the jab, great boxing on the feet, throws a decent amount of volume. but not enough power to really hurt Dreykus, who's shown to have a very tough chin and who can eat shots moving forward. Did take a lot of damage in that first fight, which was almost a problem, but managed to survive and weather the storm, and I do think that he won that, even though I had a bet on Strickland in the first matchup. But I'm not going to make the same mistake again. I think Dricus is a dominant champion. Dricus, however you say it. He's going to really represent South Africa well. I think they're trying to build him up even more to get him to be able to take that fight to South Africa with Kamzat, who does have visa issues in the U.S. It would be a great next matchup and you know, an exciting test for Dreykus to see if he can really survive the wrestling of Kamzat, because no one really has been able to, other than Gilbert Burns. Um, that being said, I like Dreykus here in this spot, so give me him as a confident lock of the week to continue the momentum going. We'll end it off with some degenerate props in a card in Saudi Arabia last week that did not have a single submission. I've seen a lot in this card that are enticing to me. Big numbers that I think are insanely, insanely good prices. Um, I'm going to be playing all of these you see on the screen. I think steal by sub is the most likely here at plus 375. Rongju is shown to be susceptible to submissions. I think steal is going to hurt him on the feet and also be able to land his takedowns and potentially get some sort of club and sub, or even if he wants to just show off his grappling, I think he's better everywhere. Even though, like, maybe not in technical striking, I shouldn't say everywhere, but I think the submission's very live here for Steele. If even if in several circumstances that could go down, I can see several different ways where the sub comes out. Whether Rongju's piecing him up with his faster hands, or whether Steele hurts him, or whether Steele just wants to take him down to the beginning. I think he'll be able to do whatever. A lot of people in the jiu-jitsu world compare him to Khabib, maybe jiu-jitsu Khabib. Um, so we'll see. Wei Li by sub at plus 1600 is crazy. I know she's fighting a jiu-jitsu specialist in Tatiana Suarez, but you know Tatiana Suarez is going to be shooting takedowns, and Wei Li has that man strength. Would not be surprised at all if she grabs a front choke or a guillotine on the way in on one of those sloppy takedowns later in the fight, or I can see another way, another several. This is another situation where several different pathways could lead to a Wei Li sub, and I think that plus 1600 is just a great number on this, which will bring us to Prado, also plus 1600 here. 6 fights, won by submission, fighting against Jake Matthews, who's a grappler, and I think that Prado may be able to catch him. Jake Matthews is a big favorite in the community. A lot of people betting on Jake Matthews in this spot. But for me, I think Prado's a live dog here. Almost made the dog of the week section, but don't quite have enough faith in him. But I think that plus 1600 is worth a stab. And maybe the best value of all the degenerate props, Croup by sub at plus 1200 is insanely overpriced. Crude is someone here who has submitted Paul Craig at 205 pounds, who's one of the best jiu-jitsu guys that we've seen at light heavyweight. I think Crude's in that mix as well. Plus 1200 on a sub is absolutely blasphemous on a guy that's a power puncher, and really we haven't seen his grappling skills tested. Another live dog here who is considered for dog of the week, maybe even more so than Prado. I think Crute's going to have a good coming back performance here at home, and I think the sub at plus 1200 is insane value. So definitely going to be sprinkling that. Steele and Crute, my favorite two plays in this degenerate prop side, but we'll have a little bit on everything. I do like Wei Li here as well, as I said earlier. Um, but that being said, I do get caught picking with my heart here and there, and I'm really trying not to do that this card. Um, I do want Strickland to win, but I think Duplessis is the side. Wei Li is a little bit of a heart pick as well, but I also just see her having the better striking, giving problems to Tatiana Suarez, um, and Tafa giving problems to Teixeira. Early on, I think the counter striking is really going to confuse Teixeira, as he's expecting just brawling, which a lot of heavyweights do. Tafa's a little more reserved, and you have to really beat him with the grappling. So we'll see if Teixeira is able to use that supposed BJJ black belt that I've heard he has, Never seen him grapple. Can't find any footage of him online grappling. But that was for the breakdown earlier this week. I appreciate y'all for tuning in again. Don't forget to drop a like, a thumbs up button below. I really appreciate all the love and support you guys have shown, and that's the way to just continue to pour back into me, build me up. Just drop a like for me while you're here. I do appreciate that. Comment me your favorite play this week if you've made it this far in the video, and we'll see you next Wednesday on the preview and prediction show. Stay funky and have a great weekend.